Problem property ordinance.
Yep.
You know, that's something that was passed. I remember, I think you were down at Ashley Street a few years back. You were
Exactly.
showing that problem
31
property.
Ashley Street, the house where the alligator was discovered.
But I don't think that, you know, you have to have 8 valid complaints to become a problem property. Then you start paying the police costs to come
Right.
there. And my problem reading the ordinance, I think it's like 8 pages, and I've written some articles on this,
Yep.
is a drug raid of 10 guys cutting cocaine with, you know, 15 kilos is the same as someone calling because their TV's too loud. If it becomes a valid complaint. So this
Yeah.
guy, like this North Front Street property, had 3 drug raids in 6 weeks, 4
Yeah.
during the year. I found
Yeah.
another one. 4 during a single year, and it's not a problem property.
Right.
They get a letter after 3, I believe, that says, hey, you're getting closer
Yeah.
to problem property, but does nothing. So it seems to me that it's kind of weak, the problem property.
What came out of the city council was certainly weaker than the version that I proposed, which had a lower threshold that would trigger the fee shifting provision. In other words, I think we had it at 6, right? So if you have 6 valid complaints associated with a particular property, then it would become a problem property, and every phone call after that, every police response after that would be charged to the landlord. I'd like to see that threshold lower again. I'd like to see the city council revisit it. But I do think, by the way, it has had a good effect in the sense that when the letters go out, and you'll be talking to the police chief at some point in the next week or so on your show, he would, I think, would tell you is that, you know, when they've sent letters out to landlords that are, you know, have had a few valid complaints, that they've seen a change in behavior. The call volume has actually gone down. So you should talk to him about that. But we have seen a drop in call volume in a lot of places around the city.
Do you think there should be an amendment, though, to say not all calls are equal? A drug raid is bigger than a phone call for a loud TV?
Yeah, I think you start to get, so we could look at something like that. We tried to model our problem property ordinance on that of some other cities that have done a similar thing. Boston's is probably the closest to us. There really aren't other Massachusetts cities that have done it, maybe 1 or 2 others. In the case of Boston, you know, they've only done the fee shifting provision once on one particular property, and they settled out of court with that property owner for the bill. But it's used very sparingly. Where they, in their experience, that they got the change in behavior was just by the warning letters. But I agree, you need to go all the way through with certain property owners to make those warning letters more credible.
And not to keep on it, but March, you had this guy named Salazar with 53 convictions. He's the name on the property. They drug raid, they bust him.
This is the North Front Street house?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then July, he's there again as homeless. And then you look at all the people busted, they have these long drug records. So the landlord and I tell the landlords, and they say, when the landlord's like, do you know this thing called Google? You put their name in there, and it shows you a lot of their
Well,
stuff.
so the landlords, and we've talked about this before, you know, it's classic. What you're describing is classic. So we don't have there aren't enough landlords who are doing criminal background checks on their tenants. That's not too much to ask. Look,
Especially
if
rated.
it's
If you're rated 3 times, start
Well, it's
checking.
kind of obvious, right? It's like you don't even have to do a check. You know, it's
Yeah.
the guy that lived there before. So I don't feel badly for a landlord who knowingly takes somebody in who's a career criminal, right? And it doesn't take too much to find those things out. So if you get somebody who's moving in from another city, and that has no references, you should, if you're a landlord, should be doing a criminal background check on that person. You should also be doing a credit check on that person. And you know, if we had more landlords, so the vast majority of small landlords do that stuff. They do their homework. And again, the problem we have in our city is with a very small handful, and they're the ones who don't do the homework. They're the ones who really don't care if they're bringing in a criminal element into the city, into their apartment, if that person's paying first and last month's rent. I mean, it's as simple as that, and you know, that's just not something we can tolerate. That's not something that I think neighbors should put up with. It's not something the police should put up with, and you know, we aren't going to put up with it.